Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. And today we'll be talking with Ryan, but let me introduce myself as Zach. If you're a returning viewer or listener on the streaming platforms or on YouTube, then maybe you're familiar with me. If not, then thank you for joining us on this episode. Today we'll we'll be talking with the CFI here. Ryan, I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself briefly if you don't mind.
Yes, my name's Ryan Whitaker. Second time being here, and happy to be back. Been working for Thrust since November 23, so about a year and a half, and yeah,
All right.
still chugging along.
Yeah, no, well, thanks for joining it. We've had you once before, so it'll be, exciting to talk to you and get a little deeper into some of the, expertise you may have to offer. Uh, I'd like to start off with a question, um, just to kind of get to know you a little bit more. What is something that you feel like someone should probably know about you in order for you to feel like, maybe understood by them? Like, what's something that, you would use to describe yourself, sort of?
Well, I like to think I'm outgoing and friendly. I think it probably depends on the day and how much sleep I got the night before.
Yeah.
But I love aviation. I like getting to share my love for aviation, which you can do as a CFI, things like that. Not just the students, but discovery flights. New students or people that are not even students at the time, but rather just more want to dip their toe in the water.
Do you feel like your outgoing nature that you may have, do you think that benefits you here in aviation?
Oh, 100%. Because, you're going to be flying, especially once you get to the airlines, you're going to be flying with people you've probably never met most times. And you're going to new places, you're meeting, it's a small world, but it's also a big world, right? And so you're going to be meeting new people all the time. And if you are, I think being outgoing and friendly is going to help you in that regard.
It's funny because I've always considered myself a personality hire.
Yeah.
But I've learned like that gets you pretty far.
That still counts, right?
Yeah, and I'm a hard worker, so it's never, like they just hired me and I'm just floating along. But I've come to realize though that kind of skill is a soft skill to be able to
Yeah.
talk to people, and to be friendly and get to know people. Like you said, it's a small world over time.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you're a CFI. How long have you been a CFI?
So yeah, since November 23, got hired here at Thrust. So what is that? About what are we in the seventh month now?
Yeah, it sounds about right. You said
So about
2023.
yeah, 2023. So was that 20 months?
Yeah, just about. Yeah, you're coming up on the 24-month mark ish. Honestly, I
Yeah.
counted the months wrong one time, and someone said something in the comments. So
Oh,
I
okay.
stay away from doing that.
Well, they can do their math, themselves.
Yeah, exactly. They did.
Yeah.
No, but so how's it been though? The question I have is, when you become a CFI, there's a lot to learn, and I think you learned that pretty quickly. That whoa, there's so much to know. How do you feel now versus when you first began being a CFI?
Um, it almost like when you first start, you get hired, right? At least for me, I got hired right out of the program, so I knew what the program was like. And when I started teaching students, I knew what to kind of how to help them prepare. Obviously, you do your training yourself, but it's kind of overwhelming at first. Your first couple flights, you're like, dang, it's really, you know, you're you're off the hook, or whatever,
Yeah.
off the leash, I guess you could say, and
Hmm.
it's on you to really make that a productive flight. And it's kind of you almost get imposter syndrome
Yeah.
at first because of you're the guy now, teaching
Hmm.
them and things like that, and leading the lesson plan and everything like that. So it's overwhelming at first, and then you realize how much you don't know. And then
Hmm.
now I've kind of gotten to a point. Obviously, I don't know close to everything, right?
Right.
Um, but I'm comfortable in, I guess, knowing that I can, if something I don't know, I can figure it out, kind of thing. You kind
Right.
of learn on the job a
Hmm.
lot. You get trained how to be a CFI and a CFII, but you, you know, experience, there is no replacement for experience in that regard.
Do you feel like you're able to figure things out with more aptitude than before?
Yeah, and probably less hesitation too. That's
Hmm.
probably the biggest thing is like, you know, at first, like I said, you have that imposter syndrome, and maybe, uh, you don't know if what you're thinking is, which maybe it is the right thing to do. Maybe you don't know if it is, right?
Yeah.
You're not sure of yourself. But now, once you get that experience, you're like, okay, yes, I know this is the right thing to do.
Where does that sort of come from? Is it just, you said experience, but like, I'm curious as to what feels different when you do that, because at first it's like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm correct, and now you can be like, I'm pretty sure I'm correct because.
Yeah, well, like you said, experience, other people's experience too, talking with more experienced people.
Mm-hmm.
I've been here long enough where I'm more of the one of the senior instructors.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes people come up to me for advice, which then I send them to someone else, of course. But no.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess that just, I mean, really experience and I guess knowing, I guess a better understanding of what's going on, and then
Hmm.
you can better, make a better judgment call based off of that.
That makes sense. I think context helps a lot. So you get to a point that you're at now where you feel a bit more, confident finding the answer to questions and things like that and solutions. Uh, what's something that you're kind of working on now? Is there a focus, or are you, just really into the instructing side of things?
Yeah, obviously the focus is the next job, right? The
Hmm.
next career, or not next career, but rather next step in the career.
Hmm.
So trying to get in a jet, right? But obviously, I can't sacrifice my current job for that, right?
Right.
Because, like you said, and I think I said this the last time, right? It's maybe it's not. I'm thankful. I'm still thankful to have this job. Maybe it's not the job that maybe not, it's not my dream job, right? But obviously there's students coming here paying a lot of money for me to, for me to, I guess, teach them and do my job.
Right.
So the least I can do is take it seriously, right?
Yeah.
But you're always looking for that next step and things like that. But at the same time, you're not sacrificing, you know, not checked out in a way kind of thing. You got to make sure you're still present in the job you have now.
Exactly. That's a difficult part of the process to be in. I feel like in any sort of industry, to be sort of ready to learn something new and move forward, but not to sacrifice what you already have going on. It's kind of like an addition.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
tough.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So before I ask you a bit more about the possible next steps, when did you realize, just for added context to this episode, because I want our viewers and listeners to have that. When did you know that you loved aviation? When did you kind of start to chase it, and when did it kind of click?
So, yeah, I was playing hockey until, like I said on the last one, I was playing hockey till I was about 20, right?
Mhm.
But the last year or so, I knew I wasn't going to play in the NHL or anything like that.
Mhm.
So I started looking for careers or thinking about careers, um, kind of like life after hockey, I guess, because I played it growing up and that's all I really knew.
Yeah.
Um, and traveled a lot for hockey, so I was in and around airplanes all the time, traveling in and out of airports. Um, always had since I was little, a love for big machines,
Yeah.
and so plane's a big machine. And then
Yeah.
my uncle flies, and he's a captain at Southwest, so I talked to him more and more about it. Did some
Mhm.
research on my own. Then when hockey came to an end, um, started did a discovery flight. Then I went to a Part 61 to get my private,
Yeah.
and I think it clicked probably. Well, I don't know if clicked or I knew enough about it probably in the first 5 or 10 hours to know, hey, this is really what I wanted to do, because in the first 5 or 10 hours you still are kind of wet behind the ears, or definitely wet behind the ears, and you
Yeah.
don't. Some of it's still smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that was about the time, and then once I got that my private, then I went to the rest.
It's interesting to hear you start at Part 61. I probably asked you about that last time too, but uh, was there a bit of a difference coming here, and did you know what to expect?
I did some research and I kind of knew a little bit what to expect, but
Hmm.
obviously it's still new. One thing I didn't really think about before I came, and it's even grown since I was a student, just because the classes have gotten bigger and stuff like that,
Hmm.
is the community around it. Right? When I came
Hmm.
from Part 61, I didn't really know anyone other than my instructors at the
Right.
flight school, and then now it seems like there's there's kids up here studying all the time. It's so, especially me as an instructor, I'm up here 5 days a week and I see everybody, and it's just like the community behind it, I guess, is what I didn't really. It's one thing I got out of it that I didn't expect to get out of it. I kind of thought of it
Mm.
as a solo, um, endeavor, I guess you could
Hmm.
call it. But really, I mean, I've made some really good friends and continue to make really good friends
Right.
just through, and I have just a small sample size, one flight
Exactly.
school.
Could you imagine going this much through the process without a sense of community? And
Um,
and if so, like what would the difference do you imagine look like?
yeah, I don't know if I don't think I would have been as I think I would have got it done, obviously. I don't know if I would have been as quick and successful, I guess. I mean, um, in times, not everything, but
Right.
it was nice. Like I said, I was in student housing, like I said on the last podcast, I was in student housing, so I met, yeah, like my roommates helped me. They motivate you, the other students and things that people you're going through it with motivate you as well as keeping you accountable.
You're saying like maybe there's something next on the horizon. Uh, I know that's a difficult process. Could you kind of explain to me like kind of some of the things that you're doing to try to figure out how to maybe get into a jet or something like that?
Yeah. Well, first thing is always like online applications, right?
Hmm.
Those are the easiest ones. Um, and then something as simple as, and you have to put yourself out there a little bit more, but knocking on doors, things like that, knocking on doors, different hangars around the airport and different airports around like that, talking to people. If you do know any people kind of trying to network, going to different networking events, talking to people that are I guess, further along in their aviation journey.
Hmm.
Maybe just for advice. Maybe they're probably not going to give you a job somewhere, but
Right.
what can I do? Where asking them tips on resumes and interviews and things like that.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, is there anything that you found to be difficult about this process? I'm sure there's some things, but
Yeah,
yeah,
just the maybe maybe not getting replies back, or if you get told no, like never a feedback or anything like that.
yeah,
Which is just part of it. You
yeah.
just keep leave no stone unturned and keep going. If it didn't work out with that company, oh well. Then you just you try again. It's
Hmm.
not necessarily or maybe it's not a no forever.
Right. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
and so you don't know what all is going into their hiring process, right?
Right.
Or who you're competing against or anything, or what the other person's story is, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so I think it's just a matter of okay, just keep going, right?
Right.
Um, it's not really a roadblock. It's more like a bump in the road kind of thing.
Right. I mean, you could. I hear. I mean, if we're just being honest, like it's a difficult market,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, we know that it's cyclical, and I know that some people are concerned about even starting flight training at a time like this. Uh, but it seems like the industry itself isn't going to go anywhere. So I'm trying to put myself in other people's shoes to think about what does it look like to make a decision to start a career like this or start training for a career like this. And I know again, like there will always at some point be jobs. There'll be a lot more at sometimes other than others. Do those things like play into how you're moving into the next steps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, if like you said, if hiring is a boom, then um, that helps me out, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think I said this on the last podcast. It's like, and it kind of goes to someone if they want to start a career in aviation, that's just part of it, right?
Yeah.
And that it's not really like if you don't get to the airlines in your first 2 or 3 years of flight training, like it's a career. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if you enjoy it and you love it, then and you work hard at it, then it will still pay off in the end, right? It might
Yeah.
not be as fast as some people in the past, or maybe some people in the future.
Hmm.
Um, but it's still like if you enjoy it, what do they say? If you enjoy it, then you'll never work a day in your life, right?
Right.
It's just all part of it. So,
Um,
um, yeah,
Something to maybe think about too when starting.
yeah, exactly. Is
Yeah.
that it's a career, right? It's not really and you have this long time to have a career, right? It's not.
Exactly.
So you got to enjoy um yeah, obviously you're always looking like kind of like what you asked me is you're always looking for the next step and
Mhm.
things like that, but you have to kind of smell the roses sometimes where you're at, right? And
Mhm.
be appreciative of where you're at, where you've come from kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Well, what I want to do is double back a little bit because we have a lot of listeners and viewers that are in flight training already, and it's always nice to hear from one of our CFIs about some of the things that they may know. I want to ask you a bit more about what it is that you tend to maybe focus on in your instructing. Do they have you, you know, training students on specific maneuvers, or what is it that you focus on?
So right now, I currently only do stage checks and EOCs.
Okay.
And so I do that for the private course, the instrument course, commercial, and CFII course. So I'm basically a stage check. All it is, if you're not familiar with it, is um, a kind of a test or an assessment
Mhm.
um, throughout your course to basically see, okay, are they where they need to be?
Mhm.
At this point of training, kind of thing. If they're not, okay, well, come back, retrain this, and then that way it doesn't pile up down the road kind of thing.
Right. It's is it sort of like a quiz to an exam?
Yeah, exactly. So there'll be a ground portion and a flight portion.
Mhm.
And yeah, we quiz you on certain topics that you should know by that time in your training.
Mhm.
And it's not, it is a test, right? You're being graded,
Right.
and it's preparation for the check ride, but at the same time, it's still a training event,
Right.
right? It's meant to help you so that the day of the check ride or the EOC, everything runs smoothly.
Right.
So it's still a training event, but it's also trying to get you in that mindset of a testing environment and things like that.
So for those who don't understand what an EOC is, maybe they're only familiar with check rides. Can you explain to them, like what that means? And even then, they'll probably. I'm imagining people are like, "What? You can examine yourself?"
Yeah.
Is that Can you explain a little bit of that to them?
Yeah, so an EOC is stands for end of course, and it's essentially an in-house check ride.
Hmm.
So our school's lucky enough to be able to give in-house check rides where a CFI or people like me can give certificates.
Hmm.
Give the check ride per se for a certain rating, and keep it in house, which is nice because it speeds up the training, right? Um, and yeah, uh, I guess that's the best way to put it. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know.
I mean that sounds about right, and I'm gonna add on to there a little bit, but yeah, the way that I always understood examining authority, we have to be pretty regulated by the FAA, right? You can only give it to Part 141 schools, and we have to have a certain pass ratio and things like that. Does that sound about right?
So yeah, you have to have an approved 141 syllabus, and then that syllabus has to be then you have to have like an 80% pass rate, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
to get it approved. The best way to do that is with your first 10 students, right? Eight out of the
Mm.
first 10 got to pass. And they actually go to a DPE or a designated pilot examiner. So those are just, regular check rides, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, if it gets approved, and then you have certain instructors, which I'm fortunately one of, that we also get approved to then get checked out to be the DP in that case,
Mm-hmm.
and um, yeah, be the EOC instructor on that. One of the EOC instructors on that course, which it's still an FAA evaluation, ACS standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
It applies all the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's just completely in house.
Yeah, I remember when I first got here, that was kind of a big deal because I think it was still new to our program to
Yeah,
be able to have EOC or examining authority. But the biggest benefit sounds like you don't have to wait on DPEs and the scheduling and things like that. And not to mention maybe being with someone who isn't out to get you and is not that DPEs are, but I think that sometimes it's easy to feel like they are.
yeah,
So
and it's funny you say that because it is, I think it's still conducted to the same standards, right?
right.
When I'm doing one, I'm going right off the ACS or Airman Certification Standard, basically a book which the FAA deems as standards for that rating. Um,
Mhm.
and the truth is, yeah, they do know me before, most likely, if they've been
Mhm.
up at the school or seen me around, right?
Mhm.
But it is still, so I guess that the almost in a sense you have home field advantage, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
right? Um, just because you're comfortable with the person, right? It's not
Right.
like every time I've gone to a check ride, I never knew the examiner beforehand. Um, so it is, I guess you could say, you almost have home field advantage, but don't get that confused with that. It's
like
you know,
bias or anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
or any easier because it's still just standards are standards, right? I'm
Right.
following the same exact thing as the DP would use.
I think a student told me, maybe it was on the podcast one time, that they felt like it was almost a little more difficult sometimes with their instructors because they know them in the sense that their instructors kind of like are nitpicking the things that they know they're weak at in a way. And it almost is like forces them to be a little bit more prepared in a way. There's not going to be any blind spots. The standards are, like you said, are the same,
Yeah,
but they almost feel like their instructor are gonna hold them to a high standard.
yeah, it's funny you say that because it is kind of weird. Because I'm like, I guess the last line of defense, if you want to call it,
Hmm.
before sending them off with their cert, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Which is a responsibility.
yeah, I know. So I do tend to. I wouldn't say um, like I said, I just follow the standards,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But there are certain things that I like to see that, you know, because if something happens, with that student, like, I'm one of the people they're coming back after to question.
Right.
Um, God forbid something happens like that. But so it is there's certain things that, yeah, I definitely dive deep into. Just, um, like I said, it's still the same standards and everything like that.
Hmm.
It's just almost making myself feel better, I guess, if you want to call it that.
No, it makes sense. It feels if I'm in your position again, non-pilot, right? But I'm imagining wanting to be confident about where I had observed deficiencies before,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to make sure that they are definitely proficient, especially if my
Yeah.
name is going on in this. And not only that, I just feel as if that's kind of what the check rides are supposed to be like for the DPEs anyways, right? Aren't they supposed to sort of, if let's say you fail a check ride, aren't they technically supposed to look at where you were deficient before and ask you about that?
Yeah, well, so yeah, if you go into a check ride, clean slate, first attempt,
Hmm.
then it's, you have to cover all these tasks,
Hmm.
right? And which is what you talk about deficiencies. If I've done a stage check or something with a student before, I kind of try to wipe my mind clean of any memory, right, as
Hmm.
well as I can,
Right.
and then and not try to tailor my questions to a particular student, but
Hmm.
rather keep it the same for all the students.
Hmm.
Um, Now, and if something is unsatisfactory, like say, area of operation one, task C, like on an instrument, EOC, which would be cross country flight planning,
Right.
then up until that point, if you did task A, task B, um, we don't have to cover those again,
Right.
right? We're gonna go over exactly what you said, what you missed, and then depending on how the rest of the check ride went, whether you elected to continue, you know, or discontinue the check ride, then we'll just focus on those and then go to the rest of the ones that aren't graded.
Do you tend to do check rides for certain ratings more than others?
So the only ones that I can do are private and instrument,
Hmm.
and it's been about I just started doing them about 2 months ago, and it's been about 50-50.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, been about 50-50 on how many I've done. I've actually got one, I think Thursday, another private EOC coming up.
Do you kind of see, since you've started doing EOCs or check rides, have you noticed anything that you didn't notice before about them in terms of how people tend to behave going into it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
you tend to see maybe a um, more nervous student, I guess.
Hmm.
And like I said, um, I'll tell them, give them the brief, right? It's ACS standards, things like that, right? It's
Right.
just, you know, I'm just here to grade. I like to mention you're already a instrument rated pilot. You're just going to prove me why,
Right.
or prove to me why. And I've also noticed that I'll tend to actually be probably a little bit more difficult on um, stage checks now, just because um,
Hmm.
they're only there to prepare you for the EOC or the check ride. And I've been in situations where I've had to, unfortunately, unsat somebody,
Hmm.
and I'm thinking back in my head, I'm like, okay, well, stage check, I'm always asking this question now. That way, there's not an awkward moment where you don't pass your EOC.
Wow. It gives you a little more perspective on the value of the stage check.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. That way, I'm not. That way, the day of the EOC, it's quick, easy. Well, maybe not necessarily quick, but you know, easy. It goes smooth, and everybody's happy at the end of the day.
Yeah, and setting them up for a little bit more success in that scenario.
100%.
Is there any other perspectives that you've kind of gained or changed since you've started doing EOCs? Because beforehand, you're someone who's taking them, right? You're someone who has to show up to a check ride and see how you perform, and now you get to kind of see other people go through it. I just can only imagine what all you could observe.
Yeah, I would like students to know that I think for DPEs or anyone given like a EOC or at all levels, I think that, you know, like my favorite days, right, are when someone does really well, right?
Hmm.
Because that's fun to watch and you're happy to see them happy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I think students should go with two mindsets. One, like I said, you're going to prove them, just you're going to show them what you know, right? You
Hmm.
don't think of it as like, oh, I hope I don't mess something up. It's no, I'm just going to show them what I know. And two, like you said, they're not out to get you, right? They wanna see you succeed and things
Hmm.
like that, right? They want to see particular things, obviously,
Right.
but they want you to do well. Just probably as much as you want yourself to do well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. And I was going to ask you about that. Like, are there some tips? And I think those are two great tips that I've heard maybe similarly put by someone else. But I
Yeah.
like the way you put those. It's always the mindset of, because I've been in situations where I've had to be like judged on a performance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Showing them what you do know is such a slight difference, but big difference between hoping I don't mess up and
Yeah.
crossing all my T's and dotting my I's. You can't show up the day of and think that you can like put all your brain power into it and get everything right that you wouldn't normally get right.
Yeah.
You're gonna go in there with what you already know, and that's all you're gonna know.
Yeah. Well, and so yeah, saying that that's like the day of, right? It's
Right.
all the stuff you do leading to that day that is what's going to set you up, right? If and I think everybody knows, right? They can tell, like they can tell everybody, "Oh yeah, I've been studying," right? But only you really know deep down if you think you've been studying enough, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um and if you have, then I think that's when you can go in with the confidence knowing, okay, yeah, I'm going to show them what I know. But if you haven't been, that's when those doubts come in, like,
Right.
oh, I hope I don't mess up, right? Kind of thing. And obviously, um, you're not gonna be 100% confident on everything, right?
Right.
But
There's a lot
uh,
to know.
yeah, a lot to know. But you, right, can tell if, or can really tell yourself um, if you've put in enough effort. You know what I mean?
Right, I do agree, and that's the where the fine line comes in. Have for you, um, how like what was enough for you to say, okay, I've done like all I can, or I've done enough to feel confident? Because, like you said, there's like almost like an infinite amount of things to know in
Yeah.
aviation. It's a whole world, right? Um, yeah, I'm curious. How did you know of whether or not you've studied enough? What was your standard?
Well, and it's funny. It is hard to know, especially as a student,
Hmm.
because you've never done that check ride before, right? Um, So, you use your resources. You use people that have gone to a check ride.
Hmm.
You use people like your instructor to kind of tell you, right? And you have the confidence of stage checks and things like that. But as simple as like, if you go through that ACS that we talked about that covers everything that needs to be covered,
Hmm.
just go through it, section by section. Okay,
Yeah.
how do I feel about this? Okay, well, this one's over, currency. Okay, what? And then just kind of recite to yourself, okay, well, how do I stay current? Yeah, okay. And then go to the next step.
Yeah.
Um, so and once you've gone through that book, right, and you feel confident on everything, then really your work is done. You know what I mean? And obviously you have the I guess the comfort of knowing you went through stage checks and things like that, and worked
Mm.
with your instructor.
Right.
It is hard to know, especially like I said, you've never done it before, but you're almost going back to using other people's experiences to help you and things like that. And as simple as like how much work have you put in? You know what I
Right.
mean?
And I like how you keep going back to like, how much effort you put in, how much work have you put in, have you gone through the ACS and how many times, and have you used your resources? And I think the common denominator is like how much input have you given,
Exactly,
Because
100%.
I think it's really hard, especially I don't know if this is like a newer generation thing that we're a part of, or social media or something, but it's really everything's so results oriented. I mean, everything is results oriented in a lot of ways, but when it comes to finding confidence, it seems like you can't rely on an expected result to give you confidence, if that makes sense. It's almost like, hey, I set a goal to study, you know, 8 hours a week, and maybe it was two different nights or something, or maybe it's 2 hours a night. But like, did I hit that goal? Did I put in the effort? And then, okay, you know what? I did all I could.
Yeah, it's almost harder to judge how much work you've done if you're not getting the immediate result kind of thing is yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And
It's like, how do I be confident without the evidence?
yeah, exactly. And that's just that's just part of it. And I think
Yeah.
um as you go through your training and as you go through more check rides, like you start to learn what is max effort for you kind of thing. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like your first check ride you're not sure, but maybe you come in way over prepared. You're like, okay, well that's the standard I set for the rest of the check rides is that what I did obviously worked. So let's move on. And if something didn't go right, then you're like, okay, well then not back to the drawing board, but building on it.
And then finding some new techniques and things like that. And
Yeah.
on that topic, going through the ACS seems like a difficult task, at least for me. I can imagine going through a book like that with just a bunch of information that's not narrative based, or like,
Yeah.
self help based or
Pretty
something.
broad. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have any, tips or tricks that you could think about that you could do in each section of the ACS?
I mean, so, ooh,
Or
it's
have you
kind of
seen anyone do anything?
honestly, I'm always been more of a pen to paper kind of guy.
Yeah.
So the ACS just going through that helped me. It's not. It seems overwhelming. It's not too bad.
Okay.
It's a lot more pages than it looks,
Yeah.
or a lot less pages than it looks. Sorry.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, honestly, I don't know if there is really a replacement. Obviously, you use other resources because the ACS just tells you what you're going to be graded on. It doesn't
Right.
tell you the answers, right?
Okay. Okay.
So
Oh,
you
so
can
it's kind of like a study guide.
it's a testing guide basically. So
Okay.
it's just this is whatever task A pilot qualifications. Okay, this is, and then at the end it says examiner must assess this, and this. And so you kind of just go through there. And then, so if we're talking about currency. Okay, how do
Mhm.
we say currency? It's like medical certificate
And do you
duration.
write that down or anything?
Or you just, I mean, when I was going through it, I'd write notes down on stuff I thought I needed to review.
Mm,
But if I, went over everything I thought could be asked on that, I'd just move on to the next one.
especially, yeah, I used to use a technique where it would, I'd go through it. I'm like, oh, that makes complete sense to me. And that sounds more like an affirmation. Like, I get that. And then I read something and I have to read it twice and then have to look up the answer. I'm like, oh, I might as well write that down and study
Yeah,
that one.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's essentially what I did.
Okay.
And if I, felt confident on it, then I wouldn't need to review it, right?
Hmm.
But if there was something I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't know all the ins and outs to this, then I'd write it down and go back and review it.
Right.
But if you have that, you go into like you said, where you're gonna show them what you know. If you know what they have to ask you or the topics, right?
Right.
Maybe it's not super precise, but a broad topic,
Right.
then you go in there with a lot more confidence because you know not only that you studied, but you studied the right stuff.
Right. And at the end of the day, you put it in the work, so like that you can't feel bad about not putting in the work.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember one time I'll do this anyways. When I was younger, I got like my first C. It was like I don't know what grade I was in. I was like third grade or something. I don't
Oh,
know, but I
okay.
got a C, and I thought that was a big deal. My parents were never really on me about grades, but I remember afraid to show my mom my C, but not because I got a C, just because I know I kind of slacked off.
Yeah,
That was like my
exactly.
first time slacking off, and I was embarrassed. And I wouldn't. It would be different if like I actually tried, but like it's one thing to fail after you've tried,
Hmm.
but it's another thing to fail like when you didn't even try, and get graded on that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, it's almost like a certain sense of guilt,
yeah, exactly.
you didn't put in the effort.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it just comes down to, what max effort is for you.
Exactly. Yeah, and then yeah, I still feel like you should have confidence after that. Let's zoom out a little bit more. I want to ask you a more broad question, like, what's been the hardest part of aviation for you? And whether it be even something like a maneuver or is there a mindset? Like what's been the hardest part for you?
Nothing stands out as just difficult things in each kind of step along the way.
Mhm.
Um, I guess currently it would be just um, I guess not knowing what's next,
Mhm.
but there's a certain excitement about, you know, what's on the horizon and things like that.
Mhm.
But just I'm always kind of a guy to try to plan my friggin' life, I guess, a couple years in advance, and you can't really in aviation at all.
Yeah. I
Um,
feel like it feels like that in a lot of places right now, for the record. I would say I
yeah,
feel like that. I'm like, I can't make any plans right now. I'm just kind of going with the flow, which I'm at an age where I'd like to plan.
yeah,
So,
exactly. And it's like I said, it goes back to just knowing that it will be there, and
mhm.
maybe not today or tomorrow, but down the line it will be there,
Yeah.
and that you have to kind of smell the rose. Well, I don't know about smell the roses, but uh, be thankful for and aware of how far you've come and things like that.
No, that makes sense. Just kind of just sitting into where you're at
Exactly.
and kind of just playing the part and doing it to the best of your ability.
Uh huh.
It's actually kind of refreshing. I keep doing this, but I've been working on just trying to do a good job exactly where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like you said earlier, focusing on what's next sometimes can take you away from what you're already doing. And I think maybe I take this as an opportunity to do exactly that. Like, let's just focus for a second, and then maybe not, put one foot into the future and stand where I'm at.
Yeah.
So, um, what was one of the more difficult ratings or maneuvers for you?
I would say, I guess so. The in commercial, the power off 180,
Yeah.
which is essentially, I guess for those that don't know, is your a beam your landing point, and then you cut your power, and you have to land on your touchdown point, and
Hmm.
within 200 feet.
Hmm.
Um,
And the difficulty there is that you're
well, you're
uncoordinated at first,
judging,
right?
so you're judging, the wind, your airspeed, and everything like that, and the airplane's glide to hit your point, and those I don't know, I had the yips or something. I couldn't get through it. And once I finally did, it was all on the stage checks, right? Whether we talked about what stage checks are there for, it's to help you on the day of the check ride. Well, once I got over that in my stage check, I think my check ride was next week, and I went to the check ride and passed.
Okay.
So, but getting to that point, I mean, it was almost um, and you talk about like learning from other people's experience, flew with other instructors, and
Yeah.
talk to other students and things like that, and um, yeah, just I guess clicked at one time or another.
Yeah,
It worked out, I guess.
yeah, it does. I'm curious. Is that something you ever had to go over with students?
Yeah, especially with not maybe necessarily power off 180s, or, you know,
Because it's not part of the.
well, it is, but not just power off 180s, just stage checks in general.
Mm,
They'll someone will be upset with themselves, maybe be down. I'm like, look, I've been through it, right? I failed this stage check, shoot, I don't know, like 4 times, I think, right?
yeah.
I was like, but at the end of the day, I went to the check ride and I passed.
Yeah.
So um, don't let it get you down, right? It's just it, we it's there for you to improve, right? That's why
Right.
you're getting, that's why the stage check's there is to help you on the day it really does count. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right, where it goes on your record or anything like that. So, um, I think kind of talking to that student about my experience helps them it's not you're not the first person that has gone through this. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And it'll if you keep working at it, it'll work out. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. Is there anything is there any small pieces of advice that you'd like to give someone who's working on a power off 180 or currently studying it? Um, Technically, is there the technical maneuver side of it all?
Oh, geez, it's kind of a hard maneuver.
Yeah, it is.
And everyone kind of does it a little bit differently.
We have a video on it. I don't know if you care about that video, if that video is good
Y-
to you or not, but
Yeah, yeah, the video helps. Let's see. Um, I always talk when I'm talking to students or on stage checks when I'm debriefing them on a
Mhm,
Power 180. It's always about um, airspeed and your aiming point,
mhm,
right? So recognizing on where do you want to be and not only where do you want to be at, but at what airspeed. And
Right.
if you're not at that airspeed, what are you going to do about it? So for us, right, if you're 61 knots in ground effect, 2 centerline stripes before, let's say the 1,000 footers,
Mhm.
then you'll be able to flare it and land smoothly on your 1,000 footers.
Mhm.
Okay, and then I'll kind of expand on that. Okay, so 61 2 centerline stripes before, looks kind of like 70 knots
Mhm.
um, over the numbers, right? So I'm always, and that's kind of the Archer specific,
Yeah.
right? But it goes to other airplanes. So take your numbers from your short field landing, your airspeed numbers,
Mhm.
and then apply that to getting your plane in a position where you're
Mm.
hitting those numbers so that you can set yourself up for the thousands, right? The only difference is you don't have power to do it, right? So it's getting from maybe your best glide where you probably start out at that airspeed when you're in the pattern and they kill your power,
Mhm.
right? To getting to those approach speed numbers where you want. And then obviously you have different techniques with, I always liked coming in with 2 notches of flaps.
Right.
And the reason being, if I thought I was going to land short, in ground effect, I could put in the last notch of flaps and that'd give me an extra little float to hopefully touch my touchdown point. Um, but other than that, I mean, yeah, if you follow that, you probably hit them all, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. That's pretty good context. I mean, I can understand the concepts at most. It took me a while before I could understand that you're pretty much doing the entire what do you
Yeah,
call it?
approach to
Approach
land.
base and like yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're in the downwind, you go base to final, all
Yeah, base to
without,
final. There you go.
um, all with no
With no power.
power. Yeah,
And the difficulty is that usually you can offset some of your mistakes with some power, right? But you don't get that variable.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no power, so it's you know, uh, there's no, you think with no power, right? You want to make the runway, but at the same time, you can't. You only have 200 feet, right, to
Hmm.
land. So then you don't want to land long, right? And then so maybe you start to compensate, and then you start landing short. But
It's a bit more precision.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
and it changes every day just based on what the winds are doing and things like that and
Hmm.
density, altitude that day. But uh, some things that will never change are if you're hitting those points at those airspeeds,
Hmm.
and obviously it changes plane to plane, then I think, 99 times out of 100, you will be hitting your points.
Those are like checkpoints, though, right? I mean, you should be looking to match your speed up with the exact elevation and point you're at
Exactly.
in coordination to the runway.
And
I
the
know there's better terms for that, but
No, I know what you're
yeah,
saying. And
yeah,
and the thing that's going to change is how you're going to maneuver your plane to get to those points, right? If it's a windier day,
right. Take that and then make that decision.
yeah, exactly. You're turning sooner rather than later. When am I putting flaps in? Things like that.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, so yeah, that's just that's the hardest part is getting to those points.
Mm.
But once you get to those points, and I think if you do it more, the repetitions of doing it, then you have the confidence of knowing, okay, yeah, this plane will hit this point if I hold it off long enough or whatever.
All right. Well, if you're listening or if you're viewing and if you're not already a subscriber on YouTube, we do have a couple of videos over it. Some people have found them a bit helpful. I'm not going to say it's going to solve all your problems, but we go into a lot of depth with Andrew. Andrew did a pretty good job
Yeah.
on there, and we worked with Chris on that too.
Uh-huh.
So hopefully there's some good information in there. I like making stuff like that because I go to YouTube to learn stuff all the time.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
take it very serious to like make something that's in depth.
Yeah. Oh,
So
and when I was struggling with Power Off 180s, I was looking up Power Off 180 YouTube videos, and so
yeah.
that video is very helpful for people that it's just um getting another opinion on it, things like
Exactly.
that.
It's just perspective. Aviation, since it is a whole world, like seems like there's a lot of osmosis that you need to
Yeah,
learn through.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, even me right now, I'm like, oh man, I feel like if I would have gone into like, let's say I were to start trying to fly, I feel like I'd be set up with at least understanding so much.
Uh-huh.
Now, like the aptitude would be there, as whereas before, I mean,
You
I was like,
came
what are
in
you
no
talking
Yeah,
about?
knowing nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
couldn't.
so just yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, osmosis.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much more to ask you. I mean, I think we've gone down a couple rabbit holes here. Um, I still do want to ask you if there's anything you'd like to say to anyone who's starting their pilot journey, um, and maybe they're a little nervous, and maybe they're pretty fresh to it all. what would you tell them to think about, or what would you tell yourself? Let me rephrase this. I'm gonna do this again. uh, think about yourself when you first started your aviation journey. Maybe you're already a private, or maybe you're just starting your private. But at some point, you know that a big change is coming in your mentality. Like it's gonna click soon. What kind of advice would you give to yourself before everything clicks?
Oh, I trust the process, I guess. Trust the process of, um, like you said, a lot of it's going to be smoke and mirrors at the start, and maybe as you go through, each course is going to provide a different kind of obstacle and things like that.
Yeah.
But trust, the people have gone through it before you, and learn as much from them as you can. I was always one of those students that always asked as much, the instructor's like, "Hey, I have to go," but I kept just asking questions. So
That's great.
learn as much from the people who have gone before you as you can,
Hmm.
and yeah, just I guess trust the process and enjoy it while you're doing it. I tell people all the time, like they're always, especially with state checks and EOCs, which is all I'm doing, they're always stressed. I'm like, hey, don't forget to enjoy it while you're doing it, right?
Hmm.
Um, because it is part of the journey. It's why we do it. We like to do it.
Hmm.
And I feel like in a grading environment, sometimes that gets missed just because they're so worried about the results. It's like, you know, and obviously your most fun days are probably going to be the days you perform the best,
Hmm.
right? But yeah, don't forget to enjoy it and just try to learn from people that have gone before you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Staying curious seems like for me, a goal too. So I can only imagine what that could do in aviation.
Yeah,
Well, thank you, Ryan, for joining us on this episode. We've had you once before, but it's nice to kind of get to know you a little more and kind of get to know what's going on with your career right now. We'll have you again once you kind of keep moving forward. I
yeah,
want to know where
exactly.
you
Yeah,
go
come
next.
back and all right, yeah, I'll do that once I'm on the next step. Then I'll come back
Exactly.
and tell you all about it.
Yeah, you'll have
So
to let us know what got you there.
yeah, exactly.
Anyhow, if you guys are still listening to this episode of Pilot Say What, whether it be on a streaming platform or on YouTube, ratings, likes, comments, subscribes, those things go a long way, especially in helping others find our platform where we get to hear what pilots have to say. Thank you again for joining in. My name is Zach. Thank you, Ryan, for sitting with me, and we'll see you guys next week.